Okay. Hello, I'm Tom, your friendly neighborhood atheist. And this is the show that I'm now calling One Old White Guy, which is me. The other one, we got a little bit gruff, and the title's still in flux. But the basic idea, what I'm getting to is I've always been an atheist, but I've always seen atheists as basically old white guys. My first introduction to an outspoken atheist was Richard Dawkins, who at the time I thought was this arrogant asshole. And as I became older, I came to understand that he was kind of justified. So I came to relate to him. But still, I've seen mostly just white men as atheists, and particularly mostly Christian white men. And that always kind of bothered me. And in college, I got to meet a lot of people of other religions and other nationalities. And still, I only thought of atheists as old white guys. As I've gotten older, I've gone to some events and met lots of people. And I see the speakers, and primarily it's still kind of old white guys. And there are some others showing some other viewpoints. But my objective is to give everyone else a chance to talk, and also give them also somebody to see. And that includes other nationalities and other religions. So anyways, today I have with me Mandisa Thomas. And say hello.
Hello. Well,
So why don't you tell
hello.
me a little bit about yourself?
Okay, yes. Well, thank you very much for having me on your show. I am Mandisa Thomas, and I am one of the founders and president of Black Nonbelievers Incorporated. And I was born and raised in New York City. Been in the Atlanta area now for over 17 years. And honestly, I actually wasn't formally raised religious, if you will, which is actually a rarity in my community. I was I sang in different churches growing up under a voice instructor. My mother had me and my brothers in various extracurricular activities growing up. She always had us in the library, and so I was exposed to religion, but I was never formally made to believe in any of it. However, I was not spared the impact or seeing the impact that it had on my family members. I certainly do have other family members that are religious. And so, but I can say that I've pretty much been an atheist all my life.
I was to say you're kind of like me. You grew up with a family who was religious and were involved in church, but never truly believed. That's
Yeah, I have family members that are involved in their churches. My immediate family, though, we were never that involved in church, but we were involved in community activities,
mhm.
but nothing that was centered around a belief.
Yeah. My parents had me going to church, though they didn't really go, and then they seemed completely confounded that I was an atheist.
Right.
And I was kind of confounded
Interest.
that they actually believed. So,
Yeah, funny how that works out.
I've known you on Facebook for probably close to a year now. I haven't met you in person yet, but I'm looking forward to doing that in September in Wisconsin for the Myth Information Conference that they're having.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? What you plan to speak on?
Yes, I was happy to be invited to this event, and I'm going to be doing a talk called "Never an Anomaly." I might come up with a different title for that in the future, but I will be discussing how Black comedy and literature has actually challenged religion and Christianity over the years. Now, it's no secret that the Black community is extremely religious, or whether it is just culturally or out of that sense of tradition, or for many it's due to a deep sense of belief. And there is this misconception even amongst our own community that, one, there aren't any Black atheists, and that somehow we've never challenged religion throughout the years. And I was just thinking about some of the comedy and literature that I was brought up, that I remember watching, and that some of the literature that I remember reading, and some of the people I remember hearing about. And so I thought, instead of just presenting something that just makes the Black community seem so downtrodden, that I present this aspect of that I highlight some comedians who actually have that have kind of gone against the grain and talked about what they felt about the impact that religion has had on our community. And I think it's important to showcase that we've never been this community that has ever accepted any injustice that was committed against us, and that we've never just that we've always accepted this religion that was basically imposed upon our ancestors and upon our community.
It's funny you bring up the comedy bit, because Steve Hill, a comedian, and I saw him at PastaCon last year.
Mm-hmm.
I've always had the idea of the show kind of in the back of my head of something that I don't want to say was concerned about, but something I was interested in and something I wanted to explore more, and this gives me an opportunity to do so. But he basically, a big part of his routine is basically that, it's kind of difficult to be a Black man in America, but to be an atheist Black man is kind of that double whammy of, it's like, how can you be an atheist? It's just the shock of some people. Now, to me, for somebody to be an atheist seems perfectly natural.
Mm-hmm.
But for somebody who with a very strong religious heritage, to see somebody who's given that up seemed just bizarre to them.
Yes, he is absolutely right in that, and I've certainly received correspondence that verifies that premise from other Blacks, and also not just correspondence, but just this amazement that, wow, I've never seen a Black atheist before. We have experienced that. We have experienced the how can you be Black and not believe in God? We certainly, these are things that that others in the secular community, mainly white folks, may not necessarily have to deal with. And so when they see a group like Black Nonbelievers, there's often some resistance met because they think we're trying to be separatists.
Yeah.
But it really is because of the dynamic of religion in our communities, but also too, like you said, there's still this perception that the secular community is just made up of all white guys. And there are different ways that we can help increase the diversity, and that has been through creating groups that aren't exclusive, but specifically focus on different demographics. And when we talk about diversity in our community, it must be understood and acknowledged that there are just some things that certain people will not be able to understand about someone who comes from a different background. It's okay to empathize with that. We certainly appreciate that. We can all empathize and sympathize with each other being atheists. But coming from certain communities, there is just an extra added stigma that we just cannot ignore and that we must address. And I am all about being open and honest about it, because I really think that in this day and age, the Black church and religion is doing more harm than good. So I think that it is important, and then for people to not have that sense of support, that they think that they're the only ones out there. There's just no reason for it, especially in this day and age. And so, it became important to start this organization, regardless of, no matter who thought about it, who thought what about it, whether it's a Black community that has an issue with non-belief in atheism, or whether it's a secular community who has an issue with there being a Black group. There is a need for this group, and we were going to do it regardless of who liked it or not.
Yeah, I know it's difficult whenever you start a group that is perceived as being separate. People want to say, why are you being separate? Why can't we all just be under the same flag? And it's true. Everyone has their social structure and their social groups and the people they're more comfortable with. And especially with the Black community, where there is such a strong religious heritage, that you kind of need that extra support that somebody like myself doesn't need. I mean, I've never had any issue with being an atheist. It wasn't actually until I was much older and became outspoken that my family members started having an issue with it.
Right.
As a kid, it was never an issue. I had a few issues in college. Not that it was particularly religious, but it was odd to me. I was in college, 30 years ago, that atheism even then was still like, you're an atheist? That's really weird.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand, and empathy is a very important word. People like to use sympathy, and it's sympathy, I think, is a bad precedent, I guess. Empathy is the proper thing is, I can never understand what you've gone through.
Right.
But I can, I tend to put myself in your position, but at least I can try to understand where you're coming from. And having
Right.
a separate group is perfectly understandable, because you've got more to contend with than someone like that I do.
Right. And it's appreciated. The allies are appreciated and they're needed. We need for people to understand why and then support what it is that we do. We certainly, I know my organization in particular, we are about building those bridges within the secular community, bridging those gaps. We're serving a multi-purpose here. And I'm very happy to do that because, again, when we talk about diversity and who is representing atheism and non-belief, there are more people every day who are questioning and challenging their beliefs, and they often have to contend with the people who they know and love, which can be extremely difficult. And so, in order for our community to grow, we certainly do have to present that wide range of networking and support that people need to see that.
I know it's important for people to, especially when they're coming out as atheists and also
Mm-hmm.
coming out as gay, to be able to relate to people who've gone through similar struggles, who
Right.
they relate to more closely than, not everyone's going to relate to Richard Dawkins or Christopher Hitchens.
Right.
E-
Right.
Even I couldn't. And Matt Dillahunty, great guy, but not everybody's going to relate to him. So it's good to have a very diverse collection of people who are outspoken like yourself, who are
Right.
kind of putting themselves out there and say, hey, we're all atheists. If you have questions, if you have concerns, come
Right.
talk to me. And that's one of the
Absolutely.
objectives I'd like to do with this is basically put some more faces. Now, you're relatively well known. I've known about you for a while.
Okay. I'm glad to hear that.
But and I haven't seen you at any conferences yet, but I'll have to see the one in Wisconsin. And I've asked you if you're going to attend some, and I think you went to the one in Memphis, the American Atheist Conference. Yes.
Yes, I was a speaker at and we tabled at the American Atheist Convention this year. I mean, we've been tabling now for the past, I think, 3 years. So,
I really wanted to go, but my wife is Catholic, and I had to stay home for Easter.
ah,
So I was like, I like the idea of having it on Easter, but even atheists have to stay home for Easter sometimes. So one of these days, I hopefully we'll have it in Chicago in here. That would be awesome.
oh,
I'm
okay.
glad to have this Wisconsin group that's relatively close. And then there's a Gateway in St. Louis I plan to go to. And we got Skepticon and Aposticon, and there's lots of conferences.
There really are there are lots of conferences. There are many different events that are even just local as well. And there's so many to choose from. And I've been fortunate enough to have been invited to quite a few myself. And I'm always grateful for anyone who does invite me to speak, because that means that I'm glad they like to hear what I have to say. Um, but with in addition to my appearances and running the organization, I do work full time. I'm a full time employee, full time mother, full time wife. So I have a lot that is on my plate, and so it isn't that I can't handle it, but I would love to be able to attend everything and some events take place the same weekend. So of course, if we could clone ourselves and be at more than one event at one time, that would be great. But I think that that's the beauty of this community, is that now there are so many options. There are so many events and so many opportunities for people to meet in person and to see their favorite speakers. And by the way, I love Matt. I love Matt Dillahunty. My husband and I, we like the Atheist Experience. I do, and I do have respect for Richard Dawkins. I have respect for what he has been able to convey. And a lot of our members do appreciate him. They appreciate Matt. They appreciate Hitchens and some of the other, like the Four Horsemen, if you will. But when it comes to that community building, it can be extremely difficult to do when you don't see people who look like you. So that aspect becomes important as well, because like I say, you can debate the existence of God all day long with some believers, or even discuss philosophical ideas and scientific facts. But there are some other people who are just looking for other like-minded individuals who are dealing with the struggle of leaving religion behind, and also pressure from family members, as well as just the pain of even having to distance themselves as a result. So there are many aspects of this community and many needs that we serve, or that we can serve. And that is one where, the emotional side does come in, and being empathetic that does come in. And that is something that we really do need in this community. And that's where my passion lies, for the most part, is being able to provide that support and networking, all while being educational and informative as well.
Well, it's good that you're out there. I encourage people to put themselves out there, and I know a lot of people can't. I guess I'm rather fortunate where I really don't care what people think of me. It's like, your problem.
Right. I'm the same way.
But Hemant Mehta was kind of my one of my inspirations to start my own YouTube channel, Friendly Atheist, and I kind of picked up being the Friendly Neighborhood Atheist, which among others. But I had something I wanted to say, and I really didn't care if anybody listened. I wanted to say it, wanted to get off my chest, wanted to basically put it out there, and slowly people are trickling in to see what I have to say. But it's good to have a wide variety of voices out there, and I encourage everyone, or anyone that has something to say, to get off their chest, to do a video, to do something, to put it out there. That's a way to, it's really a good way to connect. You do bring in some unwanted attention, but most of the attention that you get is people who think are like-minded, that you can share stories, that you can, tell your struggle, and find people who will support you.
Yes.
The conferences are another good thing for that. I've been to, I've only like 3, I think, for atheist conferences. I got several more planned, but just going to these events and seeing speakers is great. But a lot of that stuff you can see online. A lot of lectures are online, and Skepticon does a great job of putting all their speakers online. But just going to see the people and finding the community and hanging out.
That's very awesome. It is, and I encourage for people to do that as much as possible. I appreciate that there's information that can be found online, that there's lectures that can be found online, and that it does bring a sense of community together. But you really get a great sense of who's out there. And it matters when you meet people in person, because we still have that human element to us, that it is good to connect with people offline, to see the people, just for themselves, because it's bad enough that many people think atheists don't exist. Many atheists think they're the only ones that do exist. And so what these events do is shatter that perception. When you see that there are many more out here, and and you're able to get some good information, you connect and you meet with people that you have met online. And to see some of the and to see what some of the other groups are doing, and to see what people are actively working on. There's just nothing like it, especially to me. I know I'm a pretty social person, and pretty outgoing and interactive. And for many atheists who have experienced that social awkwardness, I know I certainly have experienced that too, because I can be a bit introverted at times. But um, when you're bringing together so many people who have felt like outcasts for so long, it's really, really a good thing, it's good for the, I wouldn't say, spirit in a divine way, but it really is good for
Good
the
for the soul.
individual, just on a, I'm sorry.
It's good for the soul.
It is good for the soul. I think so, because so many of us we've become so accustomed to being so isolated and feeling so awkward around people, that these events really do help others blossom. And it's just good for people to know that there's just a world. Once you get involved with the community itself, you really realize how big it can be. Even though it's still small, it's large too. And so I really think that, and that's why we really do stress, as an organization, in person participation. Get out, get offline at times, meet with people, increase your network, because it is important.
Well, it's especially difficult for people who have lost a religion. I mean, it's one thing for someone
Hmm.
like me and you, who religion was never that, you know, big of a part of our lives. Church was
Hmm.
something we went to, but it was not like the important thing. A lot of people have gone to church their entire lives, church being
Hmm.
like their main social circle, and giving up their religion. It's
Yes.
difficult because you don't want to give up that social circle. There's a lot of secular groups starting up. I'm going to think of the Sunday.
The Sunday Assembly. Hmm.
The assembly is a big one that's growing, and a lot of people compare it to a church, but it's not. It's a social group. I mean, that's really
I
what.
like it. I've participated with a few Sunday Assembly events, and I've gotten to know Sanderson and Pippa, who are the founders of Sunday Assembly, and they are just so animated and awesome. I enjoy what they have done, and I know there are many atheists who have a problem with something that seems to emulate church.
Mhm.
But one thing I've said, and one thing that was told to me when I first got started, um, was that the religion in a church does not have fellowship is not a religious word, and the church does not have the monopoly on. It doesn't have the monopoly on morality. It doesn't have the monopoly on community. It certainly does not just have the monopoly on creativity either, because most of your musicians are known to come, or especially in the Black community, most of the musicians are have known to come out of some church, but that isn't the case for everyone. And then there's nothing wrong with building off of what a somewhat of a model, but again, I don't, it doesn't have to have this premise that you feel obligated, especially from something that is divinely inspired. It certainly can be from from it comes from inspiration can come from many different areas. And I just think that what the Sunday Assembly does and what other groups may do is good. You don't have to choose just one. That's the beauty of it. um you can look at these things and gain inspiration and gain something from all of them. It doesn't have to be one dimensional. And I think sometimes when people leave religion and they leave church, sometimes they take that sense of they take that baggage with them. And so it's about opening your mind in so many different ways.
Yeah, that's a very good point. People, church doesn't have to be about religion. I've said this for years.
Hmm.
And people like not that I'm a fan of religion, but I see that it serves the function for many people.
Hmm.
And you don't really need to believe there's a literal God to have the kind of church-like relationship with other people. Um,
Right.
church is a social group.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of compare it to smoking. You know,
Mm-hmm.
most people who smoke only smoke with other smokers. If there are no other
Mm.
smokers, they don't smoke. And most people who go to church only go to church to see the people that they know. If they move to a new place, they don't go to church because they don't know anybody.
Right.
My wife is that way. She only goes to church when she likes the preacher and she likes the people there. If she
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like anybody, she's not going because church is not the important thing. It's the community. It's
Right.
people that you want to see,
Right.
and you don't need God for that.
No, no, you really don't. In fact, this putting a God behind this sense of community and the church, this institution, actually makes people more arrogant and cliquish and elitist, and we've seen that many times over. And it's funny that you mentioned smoking, because just because someone is doing something together, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good thing, you know. So, and there are many churches, unfortunately, who can be very exclusive, and who, you know, that tend to foster this sense of tribalism, if
Hmm.
you will, and that if you aren't of a certain uh caliber, then that means you cannot belong. And I don't think many people, when people say that the church provides community, I say sometimes, to who? Because certainly there are many who haven't felt wanted by some of these churches. And if you don't subscribe to everything they do, then that means that, you know, you will forever be on the outside. And so I question, you know, how effective or how good this community, this sense of community really is, especially with some of these mega churches who now pull in, they generate millions, if not
Yeah.
billions of dollars at the expense of the people who are supporting them. So, and in the Black churches in particular,
Yeah.
it is very much considered a status symbol for which church you belong to. It is considered a status, you know, you're high status if you dress the best, you know, if, you know, of course, if you can out sing someone else, you know, in the choir. So it becomes, it has become a lot of competition and materialism in these institutions, and it's really sad that people feel like they have to live up to this impossible standard, as a result, and as a result of, you know, like I said, a sense of tradition that has had a hold on our communities for so long.
Um, Glenn, I think Glenn Washington of Snap Judgment, he was telling he always tells the story before his show, and he told the story about when he was little. You know, he went to church and he got the job one day of passing the hat, or passing the basket,
Hmm.
and seeing how much everybody was putting in the basket, and he put in his money into the basket, and then he went to the back room to turn over the basket, and the preacher and the other guy where they're talking about, oh man, you got them good this week. They put in so much money. You should be talking like that all the time. And it's like,
Mm,
this is about money. And
right.
really, that's what God is good for. God is good for when you pass around the hat. God telling people that you give money and you'll get a good seat with God.
Hmm.
That's very effective when people actually think there's a literal God.
Yeah, and that has been one of the harms and the damages of the prosperity gospel, which was made popular back in the 70s. Is
And it's
that the more you give, the more your blessings will come down, but the only one who is being blessed is the preacher.
yeah.
And so it's unfortunate that there have been so many people who have made this investment into these institutions, and they're not really getting a return from them. And I don't like to sit up there and just bash the church all day long, even though I don't. I really can't. I've never really been able to stand religion at all.
Yeah.
I've always pretty much hated it, and I've always hated what this belief in God has done to people and how it's made them very selfish in a way. I don't, you know, I don't think many believers realize at times how selfish it makes them and how narrow-minded it makes them to believe in a God that, first of all, that has no basis in basis in proof, but that it also has a basis in arrogance.
Well, let's leave that subject behind and get back to my other, not pet peeve, but objective is, how do you encourage people? How do you inspire people to get involved, to be outspoken, to basically show that being an atheist is perfectly fine and normal, and there's nothing to be either ashamed of or even embarrassed by?
Well, I like to think that, and for everyone who has ever communicated with me, atheism isn't just, that's only one part of being Mandisa. I am a I am a music lover, especially hip hop. I also have other experiences, life experiences that I can relate to with others, and I'm not afraid to share them. I was pretty much raised to be an outspoken individual. And so there are a lot of things that there are a lot of things that I like to do. I can say that my life has been pretty colorful, if you will. And I know what it's like to be misunderstood. And so I like to try to relate to people. I don't talk at people. I try to talk to them. And I make myself approachable. And I think that is what helps others, because when people see that you aren't up here, or that you are this person that is so hard to get to, then that helps out a lot. And I'm just as human as anyone else. I'm not above reproach. I'm not above making mistakes. I'm not above getting angry. I'm not a perfect individual, and I'm not afraid to express that. And so I think just being myself as much as I can be, I think that is what has helped others. And just speaking, like I said, just speaking up. I've been told that that is what inspires them to know that, oh, okay, there's this person who looks like me. She just looks as normal, and she likes may have some of the same things I do. She has children. She has a family. She has a job. And so just being that person who you have something in common with, that has been, I think, one of the most inspiring aspects of what and I consider myself a pretty charismatic individual. I know how to make jokes when necessary. I certainly I know how to incorporate humor. I like to incorporate festivities into what I do, because we already deal with a lot on a regular basis, but I like to try to make things fun. Our lives don't have to be drab and down all the time. And so I think trying to, at least show that even in everything that we deal with, there is a way to remain positive. There is a way to show that support, again, by showing that I'm going through it too. So I think that has helped a lot.
Yeah. I've always tried to convey a sense of being atheist is just like the smallest part of my life.
Hmm.
I've said this before, that if Christianity ruled the world, if everyone was a Christian, then Christianity would be taught in every school. If everyone
Hmm.
was an atheist, there would be no atheism, because nobody would care. It would be a moot point.
Right. Right.
So being an atheist is the smallest portion of my life, and what the reason I'm outspoken is because there's so much religion that is pumped into every aspect of my life, that is
Yes.
thrown in my face every single moment of every single day. I can't watch TV or listen to radio or walk down the street without having religion thrown at me.
Right.
It's gotten to the point where it's like, enough already. Why can't I I have to go
Right.
into the
It's
woods to get away
insane.
from
It's
religion.
insane. Hmm.
So let me ask you one thing. Now, I'm a fairly small fish when it comes to social media, but I still contend with my fair share of naysayers and people saying that atheism doesn't make sense, and just people being aggravating.
Hmm.
That. How do you contend, being a very outspoken person and having yourself out there, how do you contend with people who are trying to bring you down, basically?
I'm fortunate. I can say that fortunately that doesn't happen as much as it used to. But I think of all of the people who have been helped. I think of all the people who I have found as a result. I try to put the positive over the negative because it really has been overwhelmingly positive to have found so many other atheists who have been supportive and who are happy that we are out here and that we all we say, yes, we do exist. So when there are naysayers or when there are the few, when there may be a few believers who are like, well, I pray that you turn your soul around before you go to hell. Or if you have certain atheists who are like, I don't understand why you have to have, certain, I don't understand why you have to have these groups. It's like a waste of time, or the people who appreciate it far outweigh those who would discourage it. And so now it's gotten to the point where when I hear certain things, I'm just like, oh, here we go again. And I'll either, depending on, I may address it or I just may ignore it
Yeah.
because there's so many things that we are trying to accomplish and that we have accomplished over these past few years. And there are so many good people that I try not to dwell on the bad. And sometimes because we felt anguish because because we felt anguish as a result of feeling isolated and ostracized. I think sometimes we tend to harp on that, and I try not to as much as possible because really there's been many more good things that have happened, and we try to keep that I try to keep that into perspective. So if I see someone trying to bring me down, or and it may get me down for a moment, but I've never been one to dwell on the bad for a long period of time. It may, if I do sleep on it, there's a saying that you should never go to bed angry, and I disagree with that sometimes because I think sometimes when you do go to sleep, you find you wake up and you've forgotten all about it. So every day is a new day, and so that's another day to just pick it back up and start and do it all over again. And so I think which throughout every day, throughout every week, month, and year, as this grows, we'll find that there's more good and much more of a change that is being affected as a result of us being here. So when there's and again, like you said before, I've never really cared. I mean, of course, I think to an extent we somewhat care about what people may think about us, but does it have the ability to impact my entire life? No, it doesn't. And I've never been the type of person who liked to be stifled or restricted. Whenever someone tries to squeeze me like that, I just break away, and it's always made me angry, want to speak out more. So that has actually subsided over the years because those who have ever tried to be discouraging have found that it doesn't work.
Yeah, I content myself with the knowledge that for every one person that says something like I'm an idiot, which I don't like, so you say I'm an idiot, look who's talking. But
Yeah.
for every one person who says something like that, there's 99 people who think I'm doing wonderful things and appreciate me and give me good news. So it's easy to turn that around, but mostly I just if you think I'm an idiot, fine, think I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Here we go. Well, you're an organizer. You've planned some events. Do you do anything? I don't know if you do any have a blog or do you do any writing or anything else? So
I do write. We do have a blog on our website, but the most recent thing that I wrote was a piece on CNN.com. I'm not sure if you read it. It was called "Confessions of a Black Atheist."
I've seen the title. Yes, I was looking.
Yeah, I was actually surprised at the response to it. It was overwhelmingly positive, which I'm very appreciative of. And I do write. I am very good at writing, but the organizing is where my heart is. And really meeting people. But yes, there are times where we will post to our blog, and I've also written guest pieces for different blogs, and I've contributed to I've contributed some interviews and writing to some other articles, and I'm very very happy about that. That adds to my versatility and diversity as well. So yeah, I don't do as much writing as some others. I don't have a dedicated blog, but
Mm.
I have done some writing, and I have made contributions to others who write.
Writing is very time consuming.
Yes, 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 it is.
People keep asking me why I don't have a blog. I'm like, I have barely enough time to do 5-minute videos.
Yeah. And blogs are saturated now. There's a lot of blogs that people can choose from if they want to read. And I don't want to get caught in a rat race, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel like, because it is sort of a competition, and as much as I understand that, and healthy competition is good, but again, if it isn't where my heart is, I'm not going to force myself to continuously write, to dedicate time to a blog when I know that my strengths are in other areas, especially as it pertains to the organizing. And that's what I like to do best.
Plus, I think
So
when it comes to media, people are a lot more visually. Uh, people don't like to read anymore. I mean, I'm one that even when I read, I don't read. I have my computer read it for me.
right.
I think people are much more visually. They want to watch something.
Right. And also too, if you're going to read it, it must be interesting and to the point. If you're writing like a dissertation almost every time on your blog, then people would more than likely lose interest.
Yeah.
And so it's good to keep people riveted. I like to be straight and to the point. I like to explain my premise simply. I can break it down, but it's something that I think that I have the ability, again, in being relatable. It is good to keep your points short and sweet. And so I that's I don't think that so writing a dedicated blog might not be the best thing for me. Just communicating that and conveying that
Yeah.
through presentations and such, actually tends to work out better.
It's much better doing speaking engagements and other events like this.
Yes.
Um, want to get into politics a little bit. Um, do you think we will ever have an openly atheist president? Now, Obama, I already think is an atheist, even though he says he's Christian and everyone else at Fox says he's a Muslim. But I think
Hmm.
down he's actually an atheist. Do you think we could ever have an openly atheist president?
I certainly am optimistic about that. President Obama certainly has admitted that his mom was a secular humanist. And I don't think either of his parents were formally religious. But and I can certainly understand him saying he's a Christian for political reasons and as a means to gain support.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that with some of these politicians who rant and who come and who push their beliefs, and they are so idiotic. I don't think that will be as far that I don't think the possibility for an openly atheist president is as far away as we may think, because of all of these crazy people now who are espousing their beliefs in such a ridiculous manner. They go against human rights, they go against reproductive rights, they go against some of everything, and people are getting tired of that. Even other believers are like, oh my gosh, are you crazy? So I don't think it may not be as far off the mark as we think, even though I know there's a bit of apprehension and a bit of fear about that. But I think the more we keep pressing, the more I think it will more than likely happen in the future.
And people, I started doing this basically as in response to just the change in the political system, the fact that it's gotten so ridiculously religious. Where I mean, even at the Republican debate, they asked each candidate, "Do you believe in God?" Which I was like, that is completely inappropriate and
Right.
irrelevant, and why the hell would you ask that?
Right.
And I'm hoping. I mean, people's like, why do you want everybody to be an atheist? Like, I don't want everyone to be an atheist, but I would like our government to be at least secular. I would
Right.
like religion to be just completely out of it. I think what religion you are should never be mentioned, should never be brought up. You can go to church if you want to talk religion. You go to church if you want to teach religion. You don't have to have it in the government. You don't have to have it in schools.
Right.
We've got a church on every freaking corner. I mean, I looked, I was joking with somebody, it's like, there's 50 churches within a mile of me. And I looked on Google, 1,500
Wow.
within a few miles of me.
Wow.
That is insane.
Yes.
And that's literally a church on every corner. I mean, I go to the library all the time, and I pass 5 churches, and it's a mile away, and that's just one street.
Right.
It's there's plenty places to talk about religion. There's plenty places to teach religion. You don't need the government, and you don't need the schools. So,
right.
Anyhow, well, I think that's about it. I think we've covered most of what I would like to talk about. How about you?
Yes, I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
So you got the Myth Information Conference coming up. What else do you have coming up?
I'll be presenting at the Secular Women Work Conference in Minneapolis in August. I'll also be speaking at the Carolina Secular Conference in Myrtle Beach in October.
Cool.
Black Nonbelievers also has, we have our regular general meetings every third Sunday of each month, unless otherwise noted. We have that's in the Atlanta area, and our affiliate groups usually have meetups, and we try to post those on our website as much as we possibly can. Our next major event, though, in addition to our Halloween and New Year's Eve gatherings, is our 5th anniversary celebration, which will take place January 16th of 2016. And we have a number of speakers that we have scheduled to present, and we hope that we hope that some folks come down and have a good time, and it really is going to be it's an accomplishment, or it's a celebration of what we've been able to accomplish and how we've actually been able to grow the diversity and grow the number of openly identified Black atheists and non-believers, just not within the Black community, but also within the secular community. And there is a lot of talent. There's a lot of literary talent as well that that have come through our doors. And so we're celebrating all of that. We're really celebrating the community that we have built, and within the secular community as well, because we have gained a lot of support and allies, and we appreciate all of you. We appreciate everyone who has supported everything that we have done, and we couldn't do this without any of you.
I know the feeling. Well, you want to tell everybody where they can find you?
Yes, our website is blacknonbelievers.org, and we are a nonprofit organization. You can find us on Meetup. Our groups have Meetup pages, and you can find us on Twitter at BNonbelievers. B and N are capitalized. We're also on Facebook. We do have a fan page on public page on Facebook where we try to post information, and you can pretty much just find us some of anywhere. We've done quite a few documentaries. We've made quite a few appearances, and so if you look up Black Nonbelievers or even Mandisa Thomas on YouTube or on the internet, you'll find a lot of information that appears. So we're some everywhere.
Excellent. Well, I am Tom, your friendly neighborhood atheist, and this is Secular TV. And you can find me on my own channel. Look for Tom the Atheist On, and of course, I'm on YouTube and on Facebook and on Twitter and a few other places. But look for Tom the Atheist On, and you'll find me. Mandisa, I thank you very much for being on my show, my second show. And I think it went very well.
Yeah, thank you once again for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Likewise. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah, good night.